Hey YouTube, it's Dimitri, and today we're going to talk all about quant, finance, risk management, benefits for these jobs. So this video is solely focused on those that are going to be either students coming into the industry of risk management at banks, so model development, model validation, or those that have been in the industry a few years and you're kind of looking to switch firms. And we're not going to talk too much about salary here, though I will mention a few numbers, but this is really looking at the benefits here. So let's just dive on in. Okay, so the core benefits here are going to be like your healthcare. So again, healthcare, dental, vision. These are the standard three for healthcare. 401k. So companies do 401k match. Stock purchase programs. Some of them do it, some of them don't. It's kind of getting rare these days. And then we're going to talk a little bit about time off. And then we're going to talk about working from home, culture as well, kind of tied into that working from home. And then other just random benefits some firms do and don't have. And of course, we're not going to cover pensions because pensions are basically a dead thing. So at my first job, I think pensions were still somewhat on the table. And I either just missed the cut or I was like a month or two in where I would have cleared it. But that was not my main focus. I left. But you will hardly ever see pensions or hear of pensions. They've kind of just gone away in the banking side. Okay, so first off here, we're going to talk a little bit about healthcare. So for healthcare, there's going to be different plans offered at different companies. So again, I don't know the exact names for all these. Like some of them are like Blue Cross Blue Shield. Some have different names of the different companies that offer them. It will vary from firm to firm to firm. So it is very hard to say like this is the average or this is the expectation. But typically you will have a range of plans to pick from. So you should have like a good plan and a not so good plan, or you might have like three plans. So PPO, for example, is considered like the best here. Again, it's typically for people that are older who go more often. So again, I'm not a healthcare professional here, but I'll explain this. For PPO, you typically pay less out of pocket, and it's typically a better deal if you're older and you go to the doctor's office, the hospital, seeing specialists, for example, more frequently and more often here. Again, it has lower deductibles. So you pay less out of pocket before all of your insurance really kicks in and covers it. You have HSA and FSA. So these are health savings accounts, and I don't remember what FSA stands for. But the real difference between these is that HSA, you can put a bunch of money in. You can use that money to basically pay for health, expenses, things like that, pre-tax. So you're not taxed on all this money. It goes straight into your health savings account. And then FSA is similar, except for FSA expires every year. So if you put in like $10,000 in FSA and you get to the end of the year and you use, I don't know, $500, right? You're going to waste the $9,500. With an HSA, you can actually continue to just roll that money over. So you can put a lot of money in there, save for old age. And then when you get, older down the road later and you need that, you can pull from that and use that. HSA plans are typically cheaper because you have a larger deductible. So typically if you're younger, you're not sick that often, right? You don't see any big health things coming on the horizon. An HSA is going to be cheaper for you. And again, you're going to have a higher deductible, but you're probably not going to utilize your health insurance as much. So using an HSA might be a better vehicle for you. And again, you have that benefit of kind of rolling your HSA down the road. Then you have dental. I think most places just offer dental. I don't think there's usually typically multiple types of dental insurance. There's just one. And then you also have vision. And again, that's typically just a single plan here. So I'm going to give you guys kind of a overview, an example here. This is about what you would expect to come out of a paycheck for these two examples. Again, these are based off of my actual information, so these will be ballparked on what I have. Now, I don't know the individual dollar value for every types of plans, but you're also going to have individual insurance. So if it's just health insurance for yourself, you're going to have health insurance for like a couple. So if it's like you and a partner, and then finally, you're going to have health insurance for a whole family. So the prices will differ based on how many people are basically covered under your plan here. So for me, married, using PPO, I just buy the premium one. I know it's somewhat of a waste of money. I'm not a big fan of the HSA part. It's just a personal preference here. But it's $145 pay period. So this is every 2 weeks. So I get paid every 2 weeks. Out of that, $145 comes out for medical. 27 comes out for dental, and 11 comes out for vision. If you have different plans in dental and vision, which is not super common, I mean, it's $11, it's $27. Like it's, it's a drop in the bucket, guys. It's not very much. So this is kind of what you should expect around this for PPO. Again, if you have HSA, it'll be a little bit cheaper. If you do FSA and other things kind of tied into there, you can kind of plan out your medical stuff. Again, I am not an expert. I'm not advising here on health insurance or any of that. This is just my 2 cents on what I've seen and what I have done. And then as another example here, if I have family PPO, just to kind of show you that jump and gap here, the medical for every 2 weeks, again, coming out of my paycheck, is $263. So now this would cover me, my wife, my daughter. If I had another kid, it would cover them as well. It is family coverage here. And then dental is $33. Again, not very much more than what you already had. And vision is $10. I don't know why it's cheaper. Again, companies switch plans constantly. They adjust them. They rejigger them. These are just ballpark numbers, but for some reason we got vision insurance. Maybe it's slightly worse, but it's going to be $1 cheaper every 2 weeks. Again, $10 is no big deal, but it's great to have it. And again, you can turn down any of these sorts of services, or if your spouse has these sorts of insurance or benefits, you can always turn down yours and use theirs. Okay, so next is going to be 401k. So 401k is huge. This is a massive benefit. When you look at job offers for me, health insurance I kind of consider, but 401k is where I really look at this as a compensation dollar value here. 401k plans are typically matched by every bank out there I've ever seen. So I've never seen a bank that does not do 401k match. It will range though between 3% and 8% of your salary. So you can pick and choose what you throw in and match here. And then they will match either 3% up to 8% depending on your employer plan. Most of them just offer traditional 401k plans. Some offer Roth 401k. So just to give you a quick understanding of the difference, traditional is basically you take out the taxes at the end. So say you put in $100 today, it grows over time. You retire, let's say it's $150. You would pay tax on that $150 here. Now, Roth is where you pay the tax up front. So again, you pay, your taxes today. So you have $100. Let's say you take out 25% tax. You're down to, $75. And then that $75 grows to whatever. And then you cash that out at the end. So it's just depending when you take the tax. I'm not going to get into the financial details, guys. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not providing any financial advice. I'm just giving you kind of an overview of what is going on at a bank for benefits. And then to give you kind of an example here, so I'm going to throw in the salary here. Typical starting positions will range between typically $70,000 and $100,000. This is based on an average generic city. Again, if you're at New York, I would expect somewhere around 100,000. You're at something, I don't know, maybe LA or somewhere really expensive, I would expect more towards 100,000. The mode, though, so the most common salary I consistently see for people starting is going to be 80. Again, this requires a master's degree typically at most of these firms. If you join a firm and they're offering like 60 or something, it's probably because you don't have a master's degree. I wouldn't really consider it a quant job. There's often not good career benefits or like trajectory into these quant roles. But in general, most firms will start you somewhere right around $80,000 as a starting salary and starting position. This has been fairly consistent over the last, 7 years now. So as I'm kind of looking at different firms, kind of getting information on what everyone's paying out for starting fresh out of college hires, you're looking somewhere around 80. So I'm going to base these examples off of 80. Again, it's not hard to break $100,000 within a year or two here. So the examples here, let's say you have a firm. So I've had a company, they do 100% match of your 401k for the first 3% and then 50% for the next 2%. So if you max this out, what it translates into is you have to contribute 5% of your salary and they will give you 4%. So if you do the math on this, this will give you $3,200 based on an $80,000 salary, so 4% here. Now, another example of a better firm with better benefits here and better 401k match is going to be a 6% match. So again, there are some that match up to 8%, but I've seen 6% a little more common. 100% match, 6%. So basically you can put in up to 6% and get 6% back. That would be a $4,800 contribution here. So this is like free money in my opinion. Like you need to be saving as an adult, someone responsible for retirement. They will just match it. So you put in $4,800 at 6%. They'll put in $4,800, right? $4,800 basically free cash coming from your employer. Again, if you're looking to retire though, I often recommend you put in more than what they're offering. So if you put in like, say 10% or 8% or something, they're only matching to 6%. They'll pay you that extra $4,800, and then you will put in, of course, more than $4,800, whatever your 10%, 8% is that comes out for your kind of contributions here. And I will mention there is a maximum contribution allowance in the United States here. I believe it's like 20,500, 21,500, somewhere in there. You can look it up. It changes every few years here. But that's the maximum that you personally can contribute to your fund. So just to be clear on this, again, I'm not a financial advisor. However, that's the amount that you can contribute. So if you maxed out, say you're 20,500, your company would then add your 6% in. So your $4,800 here. So again, they're not going to match the full amount, but they'll put in $4,800 on top of that. And then you can get kind of a bump of that free cash going into your 401k for retirement. So those are kind of the options here for 401k. I do this almost the same as cash. So I take my salary valuation, let's say it's $80,000. If I have two offers, one's offering, let's say 3% with 50% match on the next 2%. So basically a 4% match versus a 6% match. I take the 6% match. It's a better deal. They're going to pay you more. That's really just how it kind of breaks down mathematically. So anyways, now let's dive into stock purchase plans here. So these are not super common. I've only seen these at a handful of banks, but I figured I'd mention them because they are an interesting benefit here. The way that it works is typically they give you a discount on corporate stock in their company, or they give you a bonus after so much time here. So there's typically going to be somewhat like, let's say you can put in money on a specific window. So they have typically buy-in windows, or they allow you to split them up where it takes out a small percentage of every paycheck of some amount that you allot for the year. And then they take all that out, and typically after like a year period, they'll add in this match here. So for in this example, companies typically have like a maximum contribution as well. So they don't want you to put in tons of money. So let's say you put in $25,000, which is the maximum for this company in this example. They do a 15% match. You're going to get an extra $3,750 in stocks. So what this means is if you put in $25,000 at the beginning, right, they will give you $3,750 worth of stock after 1 year. So the amount of shares will vary depending on how the stock price bounces around. I don't view this the same as cash. The reason for this being is that your company stock will move and it will bounce, and it might increase in value. You might make a bunch of money, or it might kind of fall and you might not make as much money. Again, you're already working and being paid by the company. So from a risk perspective, right, you already have some eggs in the basket of whatever firm you're at. You're already kind of dependent on that company. If you buy more stock and do a stock purchase, it is a way to get some percentage. But I would think about, okay, if they're going to do a 15% match in a year, do I expect the stock to decline by more than 15%? If not, it's probably a pretty good deal. Again, there's some upside, there's some downside to this, but just some things to consider here with stock purchase plans. All right, and then PTO, so paid time off, vacation, whatever you want to call it here. I'm going to break this down. There's really two types of ways they do this at firms. I don't like the one way, which I'll talk about here in a second, but firms will give you paid time off, which is PTO. This will range typically between like 15 days up to like 27 days. So I've had a firm that gave me 27 days paid time off. Now, this is on top of your 10 banking holidays. So most banks give you 10 banking holidays. For example, like, I don't know, Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving. There's a few days like that in there that are on the calendar that all banks give. It's the 10 standard banking holidays in the US. So you get your 10 days off, and then firms that give you just PTO, so paid time off here, it's typically like 20 to 25. Again, the one firm gave me 27, which is a pretty good deal. This is how I like to see your vacation time structured. Now, the second way you can structure this, which I think is just nonsense, is they divide out your vacation days or your paid time off separate from your sick leave. Okay? So you have two different buckets here. You can have, so for example, they'll give you 15 days of paid time off, which is vacation, and then they will give you 10 sick days. Now, the reason I think this sucks is because technically to take your sick days, you or your spouse or your children need to be sick so that you can take the 10 days off. Now, this just really incentivizes people to lie and say, oh, I'm really sick, I can't come in. When reality is you're not really sick, you're just, you're trying to take off your sick days. And if you're someone like me that hardly is ever sick, you never use your sick days. So it's like more or less you're giving me 15 days PTO where another company's giving me 25 or 27. Like, the deal really sucks if you're only going to give employees 15 days paid time off. Even if you give them sick leave, even if you give them 100 days sick leave, it's not worth anything unless you're sick, unless you use them. Again, I don't like it. I think it makes it tit for tat with management as well, because now you're like, oh, is my employee really sick, or are they not really sick? Are they abusing the system? And then HR has a similar perspective on, this employee's used all their sick days and they used them all, say 5 days in a row or something, like they took a full week. Like, this seems kind of odd and different. I don't like it. I just think it's messy for management, for corporations. I think it kind of just, I don't know, cheats your employees here. I'm not a fan of it. Now, that being said as well, when you get more senior at some firms, so one of the firms I worked for, I was considered management. And so management has 0 paid time off. So 0. The reason they do this is because you can take off PTO whenever you need it. So typically senior management or management in general, you're working a lot of hours. Take it when you need it, relax. There is some pressure not to take it, but I always try to stick to my, I had 25 days before I was management. Let's try to stick to that and take around that many days off just to keep myself, refreshed and healthy by taking vacation days. But the reason they do it is because if you accrue time off and you're getting paid a lot of money to be a manager, when you leave the firm and go somewhere else, they have to pay you out the unused PTO. So now you can imagine when someone's making 150 plus $200,000, $300,000, if they don't take any time off and they quit towards the end of the year, they're going to write out a really big paycheck for all this time off. So to avoid that, firms will often make management in some scenarios. They will make them basically no PTO. So you just take it whenever you need it, which is kind of nice. But they're just trying to avoid paying out a bunch of money towards the end here. And then I'll note here too, banks have started doing a couple little interesting things here. So women typically got 6 weeks maternity leave. So you had a child, you get 6 weeks off, it's paid. Some firms will vary this. So sometimes it's like 60% of your pay. Sometimes it's 100% of your pay. Again, the percentage will vary firm to firm. Maternity leave was typically always given. The new benefit, which banks are getting pressured into doing because more and more banks are doing it, is getting paternity leave. So for example, for myself, I took paternity leave when I had my daughter last year. I had 6 weeks. It was hectic. I had a full-time job. Things were crazy. So I took mine off based on the rules of the policy that we had, where you had to take them off in 1 week increments. So I could take 6 weeks all together. I could separate them out and take a week here, a week there, whatever. I spread mine out and took a week here, a week there, and you had to use them within a year. So I used mine barely within the year. If you're going to take paternity leave as a guy, just take all 6 weeks all together. I thought it was more stressful being on and off projects. I thought I was being a little more helpful with the firm. They could keep up on projects. I could keep up on my work. I could get some time off. I could spend time with my daughter, give my wife a break, if she's trying to work and everything. It was just a mess. So I just encourage you to take all 6 weeks if you're going to, or all of your, whatever time they give you, but 6 weeks is pretty common now. I would take all 6 weeks if possible. And then finally, different banks now have been adding in kind of fancy little time off, but no one really uses them. They have volunteering time. So I think we got like 1 or 2 days of volunteering PTO, which my team actually used, and we volunteered at Habitats for Humanity almost every year. I think every year before COVID, we'd always go and do some sort of volunteering as a team. So we'd all take off our volunteering time together, which is pretty nice. And then also some firms have like a day of training or education PTO. Again, I think this is just dumb, just a waste of time, waste of money. If you want to give me extra PTO, just stack it onto my other PTO, because then there's rules like, oh, it has to be, this type of training or that type of training. You can't just take off a day to take off a day. Even if you said you're doing learning, we don't really believe you. It just wasn't worth it. I never took it just because it was too much of a headache to kind of handle, track, manage, and do all that. Okay, and now you have working from home and culture here. So these are huge. I have worked from home my entire career part-time. So this is just how risk management has worked at the firms I've gone to. Not everyone allows it. The really, really big names here, they typically are just real curmudgeon and don't like to give people the flexibility to work from home. With COVID-19 though, this has kind of been changed and more firms are embracing this. Again, I'm seeing firms that are just pushing back and are upset and mad that people are working from home and they're demanding they come back into the office. I'll make a whole nother video on that. I'm not a big fan of forced to go into the office. Even if you only come in the office once or twice a week, I think that's more than enough, way more than enough. But we can do it without it. Culturally though, the reason I've been able to work from home is just my bosses and management culture here. So even some firms I've worked at, it's not company practice, right? The company did not work from home. Other departments complained about me, right? Dimitri's not always on his seat. He's not here, whatever. And yet I'd cut deals before I took job offers on, I really want to work here. It's great. You guys seem awesome. But I've worked from home. My past jobs, I have to be able to work from home. That's kind of a condition for me. It allows me freedom. It allows me to de-stress. When I'm in meeting with just stupid people in general, it allows me to squeeze my fists and scream like, these idiots. And then I can compose myself and go back to work. But it gives me a time to kind of relax and unwind and, mentally reset myself before I go into another meeting. Because when you just deal with, nonsensical headaches day in and day out, it can be wearing. And of course, your PTO, you need to be utilized, but sometimes it's just not enough. So anyways, but this comes down to culture here. I've had bosses as well at almost every firm that just don't care when I take off time to go do like health things. So for example, like if I need to run to the doctor's and get my teeth cleaned at the dentist, or I have a checkup, or I don't know, I got COVID or something and I got to run to the doctor to get tested, something like that. I've had most bosses that are like, don't take time off, none of that nonsense. Now, again, HR is probably like cringing and upset in the background here and crying, but typically here, it's like the boss is like, you have a doctor's appointment, you have a dentist appointment, just go and get your teeth cleaned for like the hour that you need, come back and work, and let's all just get our jobs done, right? We're paying you to get the job done. We're not paying you to fill a seat for different sorts of hours here. And then other firms also do micromanagement on computer monitoring, which I think is a huge no-no for corporations, where they basically watch and see if you're online, like on the chat window. And even though companies might not have a policy against it, there's just like a cultural piece where it's like, everyone's watching you. They can see when you were on last. I'm not a fan of this. I'm not a fan of micromanagement. And that really just comes down to the main goal here, which is if you find a good culture and a good bank, there's not the tit for tat mentality. When you kind of micromanage your employees and you monitor them and you nickel and dime them for all their vacation days and make sure everything's, just by the letter of the law like HR wants, it just makes bad employees, because then people are upset and they go, well, I mean, I worked overtime for an extra 4 hours. You didn't pay me overtime, of course, because I'm on salary. So I left an hour early yesterday because I had a doctor's appointment. So like, what's the reasoning here, right? You're now wanting more than my time, plus then you're nickel and diming me for time, plus you're like over managing. It's not a good culture. Some banks have this. Again, how do you find this out in an interview? You don't. You really just have to go ask people that have worked there in the past and just see what they think of the culture and the environment themselves. But again, this is a massive benefit, right? Having flexibility, having freedoms, being treated like an adult, it makes things a lot easier on your job, and it is a corporate benefit. And then finally here, I'll cover other benefits. Like these are all kinds of random things companies choose to add in and don't add in. I believe every bank I've worked at has had life insurance. So if something happens to me and I die, they typically will match some sort of compensation to my family as life insurance. This is varied all over the board. I don't think there's a standard for this really. I've seen, for example, like they match my salary. I've seen some that like do 2 times your salary or up to 3 times your salary. So again, something you never hope to use, but it is nice to have. I've seen some firms have like pet insurance, for example. So you have health insurance, you can get health insurance for your pet. Cell phone discounts is common. So I've seen like between 10 and 20% off of like AT&T and Verizon. So if you have those carriers, you have a phone plan, it's kind of a nice benefit to get. And then finally, one of the firms I worked at had like a shopping plan discount thing. I never used it. I don't know. I'm not a big shopper. I never dove in to figure out all the details. But hypothetically, you're supposed to be able to get discounts on things you purchase like through online. It could be vacations. It could be clothes, merchandise. I don't know, Gucci bags, for example. All kinds of weird things. Just all these different companies participate in these like corporate purchase plan agreements or whatnot. And they had like this benefit page and you could log in and you could do shopping. You could get points and you could redeem points for cash back, I think is how it worked. But those are kind of other benefits that are going to be there under the sun. Again, now there are all kinds of weird benefits as well. Coffee and tea is typically free at almost every bank. Some firms give you like a little stipend of like, you get $10 a month or something to spend on snacks. I mean, they're okay. They're not stellar benefits, but they're just nice things to kind of know and to have. But that's kind of all the benefits here, guys. That's really what to look at here. The big ones are going to be though your health insurance, your dental, your vision. Again, trying to give you guys a ballpark on numbers, what would come out of your paycheck pre-tax before they take out your taxes. 401k is a huge main focus for any job offer I look at. Health insurance, somewhat. I kind of eye that, but my wife's got health insurance, so we can kind of figure out which one's better. But 401k is really something I compensate. So, if you're making, $80,000 and one's offering $3,000, one's offering $4,000, basically match if you maximize it. I typically go with one that's higher. And then don't forget, company culture, working from home benefits, time off. These sorts of things are all very important because you don't want to end up in a firm where they nickel and dime you to death and they micromanage you and treat you like trash, which happens at many, many firms. So you need to be careful in this. Again, doing your homework, looking at the benefits, trying to get a feel for these things is important. So anyways, those are my 2 cents on benefits at a bank for risk management. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, until next time.